Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are
the FAIRtax Guys.
Still plugging away.
Yep.
We still have an income tax, so we still have work to do.
But if you watched last week's program, I think we made a big step last week.
Yeah, when President Trump's, one of his economic advisors was on the Big Idea segment from Fox News, and they asked him, if you could just wave a magic wand and make something happen, what would it be? And his answer was, I'd replace the income tax with a national sales tax. Again, he was talking concept, he wasn't talking specific proposals, but at least he's got the right idea. He realizes that we need to get rid of the income tax. Obviously, if we do that, we need to replace it with something, and the fair tax just wins whatever argument would be for what's the best system to do that.
Yeah, and one reason it wins is such a winner is because of the over $20 million of research that AFFT has invested into this plan. It is the most thoroughly researched bill in Congress ever.
Yes.
Okay, so the answers are there if you've got questions.
Okay, so I suggest that you go back, watch last week's episode if you haven't already. I'm sure you can probably still find this article on the Fox News website if you might have to search for it.
Yep.
The guy's name was Stephen Moore, and replace the income tax with the a sales tax is what he was saying. Replace the income tax with the fair tax is what we're saying. And one other thing that thing would do that no other tax reform plan would do, and that's get rid of the IRS.
Oh.
Don't fall for the malarkey that, we can get rid of the IRS if we just have a flat tax.
No, never work.
Never work, because the flat tax is still a tax on income, still enforced and administered at the federal level. You might change the agency's name. You mean, come and try a little sleight of hand. We'll get rid of the IRS. We'll just name it something else.
Yeah, and I also found out, we talked about Steve Hayes, who's the president and chairman of the board of AFFT, Americans for Fair Taxation, and he's been working on this idea for a long time. He and Stephen Moore go way back to, they started working together on a speaking circuit back as far back as '92.
Yes.
So
the fair tax is the only way to get rid of the IRS. And why do we need to get rid of the IRS? I can give you a whole long list of reasons.
Where do I begin?
How about because the IRS fouls up everything they try to get into?
Yeah.
If the IRS made a GPS, what would it sound like?
Let's see. If the IRS made a GPS, and here's what it would sound like. Now, this is a little cartoon that I believe my wife found. It was online, and it's by Walt Handelsman, 2010 Newsday. Okay. Here's the instructions from the IRS GPS. Proceed to the intersection following Schedule C, Sections 4-6. Then turn right if the number of passengers in your vehicle, Form B22, is greater than the number of cup holders, line 15, currently in use.
That's on and on and on. So we're going to try to tap into our audience's creativity. And we're going to ask people to make, whether it's a cartoon, whether it's a meme, whatever, just take the theme, if the IRS made, make it whatever you want to do. I saw one thing, of a stretch limo that was just a circular.
You sent me that.
I sent you that picture. This stretch limo, the front of it was here, and it circulated around just like almost a
kind of like a dog chasing its tail.
Yeah. So as you're looking out the windshield, you're looking at the rear end of your own vehicle going around in a circle. If the IRS made luxury limos, that's what it would look like.
Yeah.
So think of if the IRS think of a product or whatever, and then if you could find an image, or if you're really creative and can draw an image, we want to see what your memes and cartoons would look like if the IRS made fill in the blank. Send your entry to the FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com. We've got a whole big box of stuff that Rudy sent us from the logo store. They're reshuffling a lot of their inventory around. We'll have an announcement about that here shortly when they get a new one online here. But we have got lots of fair tax stuff that we can give as prizes to the first. Let's do at least first, second, and third prize.
Oh, absolutely.
And because we got more than enough to do that. But if the IRS made whatever, make it up, and send us a cartoon or a meme or something. Just don't use any image that's subject to copyright.
And
but
we've done this before, and we've gotten some wonderful entries from our viewers and listeners. And it doesn't have to be graphic. If you're not a graphic artist, fine. Just write it up and send it to us because it lends itself to text.
Yeah, well, we've got to, at least something we can read out for the audio-only audience, the radio stations and the podcast. So, but of course, if you send a cartoon or a meme, of course, we'll put it on the visual mediums as well and show everybody what that's going to. But we want to see what kind of creative folks can come up with. If the IRS made, what would it be?
Yeah,
so check that out.
I'm looking forward to this because we've got some very creative listeners. So
right. You got a couple. We got some new candidate pledges, did we not?
Yep. And we were so busy in last week's episode we didn't get to it. But we've mentioned a lot of these before. Some of them have not made it through their primary, but a number of them have. And the new ones that we have, according to Randy Fisher, who's a board member for both the Florida FAIRtax and the national group, the AFFT. Okay, there's a person by the name of Loveland Gwynn from New York 13. That pledge is pending, but hopefully we'll get it along here pretty soon. Kevin Kahn from Ohio 1st District. All right, he has signed the pledge. Todd Chase, who's here in Florida 3, he has signed the pledge, and Judson Sapp, also Florida 3, he has signed the pledge. And Randy informs me that here in District 3, in which
where we are sitting as we speak.
Yep, Congressman Yoho is retiring from Congress this year, and so there's a lot of people running, both Republicans and Democrats, more Republicans than Democrats. In fact, there's 9 of them, and 7 of the 9 Republicans have signed the pledge. It's unfortunate that nobody on the Democratic side has decided to sign the pledge, because this really does fit their agenda. It really does, if they take the time to study it a little bit. But 7 out of the 9, we started out with a few, 1 or 2 here, and it's kind of snowballed. All right, they're seeing there is an advantage to this. Okay,
so again, if you've got candidates in your area that are running, and of course that's true for everybody because the entire House of Representatives is up for re-election this time, go to fairtax.org, download a hard copy of the candidate's pledge. Or download a digital copy, doesn't really matter. And if your candidates are having in-person meetings, and you can meet a candidate face to face and ask them if they'd sign it, if you can get them to sign it in front of a camera, still camera, video camera, doesn't make any difference. Send us the pictures. We'll certainly feature them here on FAIRtax Power Radio.
That would be good.
I'd like to know who is asked but doesn't do it. We need to educate people on both sides of the line here. Again, we're not endorsing any candidate. We're just educating folks on who has and who hasn't signed the pledge. But if you can get a picture or a video of a candidate in your area signing the FAIRtax pledge, send it to us at the FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com. And I'm not sure that you also send your our tax humor if the IRS made entries. That goes to the same address. But we'd certainly like to feature that on FAIRtax Power Radio. And we're going to do things a little bit differently. You may have noticed starting last week, we used to just kind of go through in of course not the whole thing, but we would go through in some detail of the Grassroots Corner that Jim Bennett writes. But so why are we doing that when people could sign that up? So we're just going to tease it a little bit, what it's about, what the chairman's report is about, and encourage people to go read those things.
Yeah, because it's free. It's absolutely free.
And you don't get any spam for signing up for it.
Jim Bennett is a director with the AFFT. He is the Grassroots director, and you can reach him at jim.bennett@fairtax.org. And why would you want to reach him? Because he has ideas about grassroots issues, okay? This time, this one is for July 31st, and it is how the friendly competition does it. All right, so he's talking about the COS, Convention of States. We're not going to get into detail because you can go online and get this. You can sign up at fairtax.org, and by sign up I mean you give them your name and your address and your email address. All right, you don't have to contribute anything, but we ask that you do, because AFFT does have substantial costs every month. And last week we talked about the insurance that's available for anybody that sets up a FAIRtax information booth, and they have a lot of other expenses. But go on and see what he talks about. Convention of States is an organization that is younger than the FAIRtax, but a lot bigger and a lot stronger, and he talks about why. And of course, having Mark Levin on a nightly show talking about it is a huge advantage.
That's the huge advantage that COS has over FAIRtax. They have a passionate advocate with a national audience, and that's something we lost when Neil Bortz retired from radio. So if you know anybody, Jeff Foxworthy maybe, that might want to become a national spokesman for the FAIRtax,
and there's some great young radio hosts that I would like to, maybe call their participation in this. But
I'd like to get Tucker Carlson on board.
Yeah, that would be great.
How cool that is.
The chairman's report. What is Steve talking about this week?
The chairman's report has a really neat title, like pigs at the trough. He's talking about the influence of lobbyists' cash on Congress. And he mentions, I'm not going to go through it here, I'm going to let you go to it and read it for yourself. But he mentions by name the top 20 people in Congress, both representatives and senators, top 20 recipients of lobbyists' money. There are a lot of familiar names on that list, and you really need to check that out. So read the chairman's report for this week and find out who the pigs are.
Yeah. So, yep, and that's one of the problems with the tax code. People in Congress get wealthy while they're serving in Congress because lobbyists, partly because they try to get the congressman to favor or sponsor another change to the tax code. Last week we mentioned there's almost 1,800 proposed changes to the tax code in less than 2 years. It's not a good situation.
Lobbyists are behind every one of them, and a lot of them are saying, let's use the tax code to incentivize people to bring their manufacturing home, incentivize people to do all kinds of things. And the idea is, if you want to incentivize manufacturing in this country, stop taxing it.
Yeah, it's very simple.
Real easy. The FAIRtax takes care of that. Okay, we need to move along here on FAIRtax Power Radio. Ron, the other day, my wife was talking to me. My wife has befriended a lady in our church who is older. She's pushing 70. I don't know exactly how old she is, but she's on up there like us. She has very little income. She pays no income tax at all. And Vicki looks at me, my wife, and says, why would the FAIRtax be any better for this lady than the income tax is? Because she's not paying any income tax. And that shows me there is a disconnect. My wife, I talked to her about the FAIRtax on occasions. There is still a disconnect in people's minds that, people who don't pay income tax will have to pay the FAIRtax.
Yeah.
And that's only half right. You will have to pay the FAIRtax when you buy things, but you don't have to pay it out of your own pocket until your spending rises above the poverty level.
That's right.
This person, I don't pay any income tax at all. Well, you won't pay any FAIRtax on your spending up to the poverty level because what's collected from you is given back to you monthly in the prebate. And that's a concept that a lot of people still haven't caught on to. They think the income tax is better because I'm just not paying any.
So, and this has been an issue all the time that we've been working on the FAIRtax. We get this question, and we have addressed it before, but we're going to spend the rest of this episode talking about this because we've, over the years, we have talked about this, and again, I mentioned this before, I've learned a lot about the FAIRtax since I've been volunteering for it. So when a question like that comes up, and I can't answer it, well, I go to our experts.
Yes.
And we have some wonderful experts.
We can answer that one.
Yep.
People who pay no income tax because they don't make very much, will also pay no FAIRtax because they don't spend very much.
Yeah, that's right.
They won't pay it out of their pocket. They'll get it back in the prebate. Plus, again, the FAIRtax gets rid of withholding. If you're working at a minimum wage type job, or if you're sometimes Social Security benefits are taxable. I know mine are. So you would get your full paycheck if you're working. You'll get all of your retirement benefits if you're drawing from a 401k or a 403b. That is taxable under the current income tax. It would not be taxable under the FAIRtax, so you would not drain your IRA any faster, but you'd still get more money every month if we had the FAIRtax.
And speaking of Social Security, how many times times have we seen on the news the insolvency of Social Security? Social Security is going to go bankrupt in such and such a year. We keep hearing that over and over again. Congress can't seem to know what to do about it. But first off, under the fair tax, Social Security and Medicare would be put on a much more financially sound basis, because it is written in the bill that a certain portion of the proceeds from the fair tax must go to Social Security and Medicare. That means every time somebody makes a purchase in this country, all right, part of the fair tax that is collected on that purchase goes to Social Security and Medicare. And there's a lot of purchases across this country every day.
And right now, the only people that are supporting those two programs are those who are working for a paycheck and getting that payroll tax deducted from them. There are some people making a really, really good living who are not working for a paycheck.
All right.
They're investing, they get their capital gains, they deal in stocks, they deal in real estate, they deal in silver and gold, they deal in all kinds of commodities, and they're not working for a paycheck. Those people who are in a lot of cases making a lot more than the folks that are working for a paycheck aren't contributing a dime to the system.
Yeah, that's right.
And if there's one thing that seniors are most concerned about, is I want to make sure my Social Security and Medicare are going to be there. And with the fair tax makes everybody, or at least everybody whose purchases rise above the poverty level of their household size, everybody whose spending exceeds their poverty level will be contributing to the Social Security and Medicare system, including, reference back to last week, people who make their money by crime or panhandling.
Yeah, that's right.
That was such a good question, Jeff. That was cool. We're going to live on that for a while.
Yep, so that's good. And Bob already mentioned this. The fair tax repeals the taxation on Social Security and pension benefits, okay? So for those people living on Social Security and maybe a pension, like the two guys sitting at this table, there won't be any tax taken out of that before it comes to us, all right? And the same with everybody, because there will be no income tax. And when there's no income tax, that means there's no income tax withholding from your Social Security benefits or from your pension distribution. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get a raise, okay? What else?
The fair tax does not tax used items. If you shop at the thrift store instead of at Walmart and Target, you pay no fair tax. Again, the fair tax is levied one time and one time only on the first time retail purchase of products. Services as well, but we're talking, it's kind of hard to sell used services, but if you buy used products, you will not have to pay the fair tax legally. Buy a used car instead of a new car, save thousands.
Yeah. And here's one. The fair tax prebate zeroes out the retail taxes on necessities. Okay, that's a roundabout way of saying that what Bob has been saying is that you essentially do not pay taxes until your spending rises above the poverty level. If that lady that your wife was talking about, if she is truly living below the poverty level, she's going to end up zeroing out. In fact, she may even make a little bit.
Yeah, if you spend less than the poverty level, you get more in prebate than you pay in taxes. I mean, the prebate is calculated on your poverty level, and you're just going to get that back automatically. So if you spend less than the poverty level, then you make money off the tax system. Your tax system is negative. But here's something else you hear a lot. The fair tax is not fair to seniors because they've saved all their money, they've paid taxes on all their money, and now you're going to tax it a second time.
Oh, wow. Guess what?
A lot of times that the money seniors have put away are in what they call tax deferred products, an IRA or a 401k or 403b. They have not paid tax on that money yet. They've been able to deduct that from their income every year, and so now if they have the fair tax now, you again will pay zero tax on what you have saved until you spend it. They will not take a big chunk of it as you take it out, which is the case now.
And this one sounds like it won't directly affect seniors and poorer people, but it does. The fair tax reduces manufacturers, services, and retailers' costs, allowing them to lower the cost base. Well, people say, well, so what? That's the corporations. They're saving money. everything that goes into the cost of a product or service, you and I pay for, the final consumer, okay? Every time. There is no exception, okay? So if you lower the cost to the manufacturers and the retailers, then you're lowering the cost to the consumer. It is the consumer who benefits. And that's a big deal for the people that are just are struggling to get by, because the cost of their products will go down, plus they'll have the opportunity to buy used if necessary, which is a big deal when you go to buy a car, okay? You can buy a good used car. So no, they're not going to pay more or pay out of their savings and so forth. They actually are right now because of the embedded costs. Remember, everything we buy is about 22% more expensive because of the income tax, okay? And most of that goes away. So the costs will come down. Yes, the fair tax will be there, but when you put the cost coming down, the fair tax, maybe will push it up a little bit, then you get the prebate. Then you get the opportunity to buy used stuff. Okay? This is going to be a good deal for the people who most need it. It really is.
It is. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
How obscene is it that the tax man is standing there at the funeral home with his hand out when somebody passes on?
It really is obscene. That's probably the best way to say it.
It is. Now, we've been talking about low-income seniors. There are some seniors that are on the other end of the scale, and sometimes, they own businesses, they own family farms, and when they pass on, those family farms, those businesses are subject to the estate tax. And the estate tax is stiff. I mean, 50% or higher. And many times that an heir, a family member that was to inherit a family business or a family farm, couldn't afford to pay the taxes on it, so they had to sell it.
Yeah, a farm that's been in the family for generations, they can't pay the estate tax. They have to sell the family farm. It's no longer in their family. It's horrible. And a lot of these people, I taught school in a very rural area in northern New York. And yes, a lot of my students were farmers, and they were good farmers, and they were family farmers, and they were going to take over the business when their parents retired, okay? But the income tax provides a situation where they can't afford to do that sometimes, and they lose the family farm. They must sell the farm in order to pay the estate tax. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more obscene than the tax man standing there with his hand out at your funeral.
Oh, it's awful.
That's it. But the fair tax gets rid of the estate tax, because the estate tax is part of the income tax. So from now, you could leave an estate of any size to anybody and with the fair tax, and the government would have absolutely no piece of it whatsoever, again, until it is spent. The proceeds from that are spent at the retail level.
Yep. And
simple, easy, fair.
And there's around Ocala here, we have a lot of senior citizens. We have a lot of assisted living facilities and so forth.
That we do.
That means that the people have sold their home. They're no longer raising kids. They're way beyond that. They might get a visit from the grandkids and so forth. But they're and they're at a point where they need some help taking care of themselves, so they sell their house. Okay, when they sell their house, they're not going to get charged any income tax on that. They can sell it for whatever they can get, and there'll be no income tax. Think of that, okay?
Yep, and no capital gains tax on it either, because chances are good, if you've owned a home for 50 years, it's worth more now than it was when you paid for it.
Yeah. Yep. So that's a huge benefit, all right? They can use whatever they made, because they've been in their home a long time. They've probably fixed it up over a number of years, okay? And like Bob says, they're going to get a lot more for it than what they paid for it. And they're not going to be hammered by the estate tax or income tax or anything like that. They will be able to do what they want with what they make on that house and enjoy their golden years.
All right, one more point. Let's refer back to something we talked about last week here on Fair Tax Power Radio when we were talking about Stephen Moore's proposal, President Trump's economic advisor, proposing that we get rid of the income tax and replace it with a national sales tax. He was saying, and this is a guy who knows his stuff about economics, that would be, and we've been using this phrase a lot, rocket fuel for the economy. So if you create an economic boom, that helps everybody. A rising tide lifts all ships.
It does.
So if there's an economic boom, then the people of all ages, all income levels are going to be better off just because the economy is so much better off. And that's what the fair tax will do.
Most people want the country better for their children and grandchildren than it was for you. Most people would like that. And again, the fair tax will help that to happen.
Again, with a booming economy, Social Security and Medicare remain, financially solvent, which is not the current case. That is, both of those programs are on their way to insolvency. And eventually, Congress critters, well, as long as it doesn't go broke on my watch, I'm okay, because I don't want to have to fix it. So eventually that's going to come due and somebody's going to get in a heap of trouble.
So we got to do our call to action.
That we do.
Close it up here. I hope that helps with the situation with the seniors, because that's a frequent question. Okay, the first one on the item, the list for call to action, join AFFT. Go to fairtax.org and sign up. You don't have to donate if you don't want to, but we ask that you do. AFFT has monthly expenses of over $10,000, and so they could use your help. You could even join the 1040 Club. Go to fairtax.org/1040, and if you do that, you commit to sending them $10.40 a month. My wife and I have been doing that for years. Okay, and you can also join your state and local organization if you have time. If maybe you're retired like Bob and I, maybe you can help them out a little bit by manning an information booth or something like that.
Just call Jim Bennett ahead of time and get your insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Share. A couple of states, Alabama, Georgia, Nebraska, are working on this as we speak.
Yeah, that's right.
They will have what Jade calls first mover advantage. Can you imagine the advantage they will have at attracting business to their state if they get rid of their state income tax and give a fair tax style prebate to everybody?
Share our videos and podcasts, FairTax Power Radio's videos and podcasts. We're on Facebook. We have our own website, FairtaxGuys.com. We're on YouTube. Our podcasts are on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and iHeart, okay? And we have a free app. Remember to look on your favorite app store for both iOS and Android and look for FairTax Power Radio. Free app. Download it. That's the way.
Real quick, one more thing. Go to PopVox, POPVOX.com. Look, you can comment on any piece of legislation before Congress. We specifically ask that you look up H.R. 25, and we're going to go through there, and we're going to look at some of the comments that people have left on PopVox. And go through that here in a future Fair Tax Power Radio. But for right now, that's just about all.
That's about it.
Yeah. Remember, any comments that you leave on PopVox will eventually be seen by your Congress critters, because they've all got staff there that look at that. Okay? So check that out, and until then, again, share our videos, tell your friends and family about it. Until then, see you again. Thank you for watching and listening to Fair Tax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
The FairTax Guys reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it. Thank you.
The fair tax does not hurt the poor and does not reward the rich, because it's not a straight sales tax like the sales tax we already have. The fair tax creates a level playing field by taxing everyone at the same rate at the cash register, but untaxes the household up to poverty level. This means that those living closer to the poverty level pay a lower overall tax rate, while those living a lavish lifestyle pay a higher overall tax rate. Yet the law still applies to everyone equally. This is called the Prebate, which reimburses every legal American household the taxes they will have to pay on the basic necessities each month. As those basic necessities vary by household, the fair tax untaxes you and not the purchases. This keeps tax lobbyists out of the picture and keeps you in control of what you pay. Do you think the prebate will be too expensive and act just like a huge welfare program? The prebate will cost less than half of what the current deductions and exemptions cost, and operates just like the standard deduction you already take. It's your money. You're just getting it back each month rather than once a year. Everyone under the fair tax controls their own tax rate by deciding when and how much money they spend above poverty level, and thus how much they pay in taxes. To learn more, please visit fairtax.org. And be sure to like us on social media to help educate your friends and spread the word.